Welcome to the deep dive. We are just thrilled to have you with us today.
Yeah, really excited to get into this one.
Right. So if you're looking for a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed, skipping the endless scrolling and getting right to the vital insights, you have definitely found your spot.
Absolutely.
We have a phenomenal set of sources on the table today. We are looking at the introductory notes and the first two chapters of F. Scott Fitzgerald's classic, The Great Gatsby, and we're drawing specifically from a 1926 Penguin edition.
It's one of those texts that occupies just a massive space in our cultural imagination.
Oh, for sure.
You hear the title, and your brain probably auto-completes the visual right away.
The Roaring Twenties.
Exactly. The sequin flapper dresses, the overflowing champagne towers, those relentless, glittering parties.
Mhm.
But anyone who has actually spent time with Fitzgerald's prose knows that the glamorous aesthetic is just this incredibly thin veneer.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We aren't here to rehash the plot or, celebrate the party aesthetic you already know.
Right. There's plenty of that out there already.
Exactly. We're here to extract the deeply cynical, often brutal nuggets of insight that Fitzgerald sets up right from page one. We're going to look at the rigid geography of wealth, the deeply flawed psychology of these characters, and, well, the absolute rot hiding right beneath the surface of the Jazz Age.
It really is a dark book when you strip away the glitter.
It really is. Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the lens through which we see this entire world. Our narrator, Nick Carraway.
Nick is fascinating. He starts the entire narrative by trying to establish his own credibility with you, the reader. He shares this piece of advice his father gave him, noting that a sense of the fundamental decencies is parceled out unequally at birth.
Right.
And because of that, Nick claims he is inclined to reserve all judgments. He presents himself as this incredibly tolerant, objective observer who just happens to be dropped in the middle of all this chaos.
Yeah, I have to push back on Nick's self-assessment there, though.
Well, please do.
Because does he actually believe his own lie about being non-judgmental? Or is he just setting us up to trust him? Because, within a few pages, he openly admits to having an unaffected scorn for everything Gatsby represents.
Yeah, he does.
He describes the foul dust floating in the wake of Gatsby's dreams. He judges everyone instantly and viscera deep.
Oh, he absolutely manipulates the reader with that opening. It is a brilliant literary trick. He claims neutrality, but his judgments actually form the entire moral framework of the story. And those judgments are heavily dictated by the geography of wealth, which is really the first major concept established in Chapter 1.
Right, the whole East Egg versus West Egg thing.
Exactly. Nick tells us he lives in a weather-beaten cardboard bungalow for $80 a month in West Egg, squeezed right next to Gatsby's colossal imitation French mansion.
And then right across the bay is East Egg, which is lined with the white palaces of the established elite. But let's look at what that geographical divide actually represents, because it isn't just a matter of real estate or even net worth.
No, not at all.
You can have the exact same amount of money in West Egg as someone in East Egg, but it is an entirely different universe. West Egg is new money.
Bootlegging, entertainment, Wall Street speculation.
Right. And East Egg is generational wealth, old money.
It's a rigid caste system. And for you listening, think about how certain zip codes and the invisible barriers of old money versus new money still operate today.
Oh, they definitely do.
In Fitzgerald's world, the residents of East Egg view the residents of West Egg not as peers, but with this toxic mix of amusement and outright contempt. You can buy the mansion, you can buy the imitation French architecture, but you cannot buy the history.
And East Egg will never let you forget it.
Never.
Which sets the stage perfectly for Nick's first dinner at the Buchanan estate in East Egg. We already know Daisy is his cousin and he went to Yale with Tom. But pay attention to how Fitzgerald instantly uses their physical and verbal descriptions to expose the ugliness beneath that refined dinner table.
It's so masterfully done.
Let's start with Tom. Fitzgerald doesn't just describe him as strong. He describes him as having a cruel body. He notes Tom's supercilious manner and says he looks capable of enormous leverage. He is basically physical menace personified.
He is. But beneath that hulking physical dominance, there is a pathetic, deeply rooted insecurity. And Fitzgerald exposes it almost immediately during dinner.
Right, with the book.
Exactly. Tom starts aggressively pushing a book he's reading called The Rise of the Colored Empires by a man named Goddard. He insists it's all scientific stuff, and that if they aren't careful, the dominant race will be utterly submerged.
And just as a quick note here to our listeners, we are impartially unpacking this text to show how Fitzgerald uses it to establish Tom's character. We are obviously not endorsing the viewpoints of Tom's book. We're just looking at how it functions in the story.
Right. It's essential for understanding who Tom actually is. Looking at the text, Fitzgerald includes this detail to instantly shatter the illusion of Tom's absolute power. Tom has generational wealth, he has physical strength, top-tier social standing, yet he is completely terrified.
Yeah.
He is consumed by this paranoid anxiety that he might lose his spot at the absolute apex of the hierarchy. The racism he spews at the dinner table isn't just a reflection of the era. It's a desperate, flailing need to assert dominance because he senses the world is shifting beneath his feet.
Right. And sitting right across from him in this incredibly hollow marriage is Daisy. Fitzgerald gives her that famous low, thrilling voice, a singing compulsion.
Yes.
But it's not just a charming character trait. She weaponizes it. She uses it to draw people in, to demand their attention. Yet for all her charm, she is entirely, devastatingly cynical.
Completely.
She shares a story with Nick about the day her daughter was born. Tom was off God knows where. And when Daisy found out she had a girl, she wept. And then she drops this legendary quote, "I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. A beautiful little fool."
What's fascinating here is how that single line strips away the entire glamorous facade of East Egg. Daisy is profoundly disillusioned.
She knows exactly what her husband is doing.
Yes, she knows her social standing is entirely dependent on playing along with a deeply patriarchal transactional system. She's essentially saying that in a world this corrupt, awareness is agonizing. Ignorance is the only viable shield.
Wow.
If you're a beautiful little fool, you are spared the pain of realizing how hollow your entire existence actually is.
It's such a dark, tragic self-awareness, and that hollowness is basically an open secret in their social circle. I mean, the dinner is interrupted by a phone call. Jordan Baker, the cynical professional golfer staying with them, practically shushes Nick so she can eavesdrop.
Right.
And she casually informs him that it's Tom's woman in New York on the line. And everyone just sits there. The polite fiction is maintained. They all know the rod is there, but they just keep drinking the wine.
That is the paralysis of East Egg in a nutshell. They have everything, but they believe in nothing, which makes Nick's return to West Egg that night so incredibly striking.
Yeah, the contrast is huge.
He goes home feeling disgusted by the whole evening, and he sees a figure emerge from the shadow of the mansion next door.
Our first glimpse of Gatsby. But we don't really see him. We see a silhouette in the dark, stretching his arms out toward the water. Nick notes that even from a distance, he could swear Gatsby was trembling. And he's reaching for this single, minute green light at the end of a dock across the bay in East Egg.
It is the perfect counterpoint to the dinner we just witnessed. We also hear the rumors swirling around Gatsby. Jumping ahead slightly to Chapter 2, Myrtle's sister, Catherine, mentions the rumor that Gatsby is a nephew or cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm.
Right.
And that's supposedly the source of his endless money. Everyone is terrified of him, but they are more than happy to drink his liquor. He is a total enigma.
So why does the trembling silhouette matter so much right after the dinner party?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Gatsby represents what Nick calls an extraordinary gift for hope. That profound, almost desperate capacity for hope stands in stark, brilliant contrast to the paralyzing cynicism of Tom and Daisy.
Okay, I see.
Tom is terrified of the future. Daisy wants to be numb to it. But Gatsby is physically reaching out, trembling, trying to pull his idealized future toward himself. He believes in something with his entire being, even if that something is an illusion.
Okay, so what does this all mean for the world they actually inhabit? If East Egg is the cynical elite and West Egg is the hopeful nouveau riche, what lies between them?
The physical reality of their wealth.
Exactly. That brings us to Chapter 2 and the Valley of Ashes. If you commute between West Egg and New York City, you have to pass through this industrial wasteland. Fitzgerald there just described a dirty neighborhood. He describes a grotesque, fantastic farm where ashes grow like wheat into ridges and hills.
Such a striking image.
It is.
Yeah.
The people there are ash-gray men crumbling through the powdery air.
It is a devastating critique of the unbridled post-war capitalism that defined the 1920s. The wealth of East and West Egg doesn't just magically exist, it is extracted.
Right.
The Valley of Ashes is the physical manifestation of the human and environmental cost of that glittering lifestyle. It is the byproduct of the party.
And overlooking that byproduct are the eyes of Dr. T.J. ECKLEBURG, this giant abandoned billboard left behind by an oculist who either forgot them or moved away. Just massive blue eyes, retinas 1 yard high, looking out through enormous yellow spectacles over the dumping ground. They just brood over the desolate landscape.
In a society completely obsessed with status and pleasure, and critically lacking any moral center, these unblinking, fading eyes serve as a silent, almost divine observer.
Like the eyes of God.
Exactly. They brood over the waste created by the reckless rich. It really makes you wonder, right? In our own era of immense wealth disparity, what are the unblinking symbols watching over the messes made by the ultra-wealthy today?
When the powerful act without consequence, who is watching the ashes they leave behind?
That is a haunting question to keep in mind, especially as we meet the Wilsons who live right in the middle of those ashes.
Yes, George and Myrtle. George Wilson is a blonde, spiritless, anemic man running a failing garage. And his wife, Myrtle, is the complete opposite. She possesses this smoldering, immediately perceptible vitality. And Tom, in an act of breathtaking arrogance, forces Nick to get off the train in the Valley of Ashes specifically to meet his girl.
Tom flaunting his mistress to Nick is just another assertion of dominance. He leaves Myrtle at tables in popular restaurants while he chats with acquaintances. He truly believes the rules of decency simply do not apply to him.
And Myrtle is desperate to escape the ash heap. Tom tells her to get on the next train to New York. The moment they arrive in the city, the spending begins. She demands Tom buy her a dog for their apartment.
The dog scene is great.
It is. They find an old man selling puppies on the street who, ironically, looks exactly like the billionaire Johnny Rockefeller. Tom casually drops $10 for an indeterminate mutt that the street vendor boldly claims is an Airedale.
The irony of a Rockefeller look-alike peddling cheap street dogs is a fantastic touch of Fitzgerald's dry humor. A $10 street dog is the ultimate 1922 impulse buy for a billionaire trying to distract his mistress. It is all about cheap facades masking reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting. They arrive at the top-floor New York apartment Tom keeps for Myrtle. The place is tiny. Just a living room, dining room, bedroom, and bath.
Super claustrophobic.
Yeah, but Myrtle has crammed it full of tapestried furniture that is entirely too large for the space. Nick points out that you stumble continually over scenes of ladies swinging in the gardens of Versailles. It is this intensely claustrophobic, ridiculous attempt at capturing European aristocratic grandeur in a tiny Manhattan flat.
And Myrtle's behavior mirrors that furniture perfectly.
Yeah.
The moment she steps into that apartment and changes her dress from a brown muslin to an elaborate cream-colored chiffon, her entire personality shifts.
The transformation is wild.
It really is. The raw, desperate vitality she had in the garage converts into what Nick calls an impressive hauteur. She begins physically expanding until the room seems to revolve around her. She even has the audacity to start complaining about the shiftlessness of the lower orders, completely ignoring her own reality back in the ash heap.
She puts on the costume of the ultra-rich, basically mimicking the absolute worst traits of the people who look down on her.
Yes.
And later in the afternoon, she reveals her justification for all of this. She tells Nick about meeting Tom on a train. She couldn't keep her eyes off his dress suit and patent leather shoes. As she was deciding whether to leave with him, her driving philosophy crystallized in her head. She kept repeating to herself, "You can't live forever. You can't live forever."
That phrase is the tragic mantra of the entire era. It's the desperate urgency to grab whatever luxury, whatever fleeting pleasure you can secure right now, completely, regardless of the moral or personal cost.
But the cost becomes violently apparent as the afternoon stretches into a bizarre, drunken haze. Nick notes this is only the second time in his life he has ever been drunk.
Right, which makes him an even more unreliable narrator here.
Exactly. The entire narrative takes on this disjointed, surreal quality. Neighbors from the flat below, the McKees, join them. Mr. McKee is a photographer. His wife is shrill. Myrtle's sister Catherine arrives. They are all drinking heavily from Tom's locked bottle of whiskey.
The atmosphere is thick, loud, and incredibly tense. Myrtle is trying desperately to project this illusion of class and control, but that illusion is entirely incompatible with the reality of who Tom Buchanan is and what she actually means to him.
And then the mask slips. Myrtle, perhaps emboldened by the whiskey and the cream-colored dress, begins taunting Tom. She starts chanting Daisy's name. Daisy.
Daisy. I'll say it whenever I want to.
And then it happens.
With a short, deft movement, Tom breaks Myrtle's nose with his open hand.
This raises an important question about the fragility of civilization in this world. Think back to Tom at the dinner party, wringing his hands about civilization, going to pieces, demanding respectability, and positioning himself as the pinnacle of societal evolution.
Right. Yet the absolute moment his two worlds collide, The second Myrtle oversteps the invisible boundary he has set between his real life and his playground. He resorts to base, physical brutality.
It's a shocking display of power.
Exactly. Myrtle genuinely thought she was escaping the ashes by clinging to Tom's wealth. But the horrifying reality is that she is entirely disposable.
Yeah.
He doesn't see her as a person striving for a better life. He sees her as leased property that just malfunctioned and needed to be put back in its place.
The aftermath of that violence is one of the most debated and bizarre sequences in the book. The party ends in chaos and blood, but Fitzgerald's prose fractures to mimic Nick's intoxication and shock. Suddenly, Nick is walking out with Mr. McKee. Then they are in the elevator.
It gets so disjointed.
Then, inexplicably, Nick is standing by Mr. McKee's bed, wiping the remains of shaving lather off the sleeping man's face with a handkerchief. And then, abruptly, he's lying half asleep in the lower level of Pennsylvania Station waiting for the 4 o'clock train.
That fractured ending to Chapter 2 is a masterclass in literary technique. Fitzgerald strips away the linear narrative to show how disorienting and ultimately meaningless this pursuit of pleasure really is. Nick is a passive, drunken participant dragged through the dirt of Tom's infidelity, ending up cold and alone in a train station. It perfectly encapsulates the trajectory of the society Fitzgerald is critiquing.
Let's pull back and summarize the journey we've taken through these opening chapters. We started on the glittering, sprawling lawns of the White Palaces in East Egg, where old money hides deep insecurities, emotional emptiness, and paralyzing cynicism.
Right.
We traveled past the haunting, unblinking eyes of Dr. T.J. ECKLEBURG, bearing silent witness over the forgotten ash-gray men in the industrial valley of ashes. And we descended into the claustrophobic, violent reality of a New York apartment, where the desperate, frantic pursuit of status ends with a broken nose and a fractured memory.
Through all of this, for you listening, remember that Fitzgerald is holding up a mirror to a society that is endlessly distracted by shiny things while rapidly decaying from the inside out.
Yeah.
These first 2 chapters are a brilliant, painful reminder that proximity to wealth does not elevate a person's character. Often, having the financial means to do whatever you want simply removes the barriers to your own worst, most destructive impulses.
It is an incredibly powerful setup for the rest of the novel, and it leaves us with a final, provocative thought for you to mull over. In the introductory notes of the 1926 Penguin edition we used today, it points out that F. Scott Fitzgerald essentially gave a name to the Jazz Age.
He really did.
An editorial after his death stated he invented a generation and later saw their different and nobler freedom threatened with destruction. The book itself bears the dedication once again to Zelda, his wife, who was very much his partner in their own extravagant high society life.
That context is so important.
It really is. So ask yourself this. How much of the destructive, hollow pursuit of wealth and status that we see so vividly exposed in Tom, Daisy, and Myrtle is actually a reflection of the very Jazz Age lifestyle Fitzgerald himself lived, loved, and ultimately warned us about?
Was he writing a critique or a confession?
Consider that the next time you see someone projecting a flawless, wealthy lifestyle to the world, are they reaching for a green light of genuine hope, or are they just floating blindly on the foul dust of an empty dream?
Something to think about.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.